One day, two friends sat together, engaging in casual conversation. They were both enjoying a cup of tea when one friend suddenly asked the other, "What did your husband give you to celebrate the birth of your child?" The second friend, a bit taken aback, paused for a moment and then replied, "He didn't give me anything." She spoke the words matter-of-factly, without any hint of emotion, as if it was something she hadn't thought much about. The first friend, however, was surprised. Her eyebrows raised as she leaned in closer, her curiosity piqued. "He didn't give you anything?" she asked incredulously. "Does he not value you at all? You've given birth to his child, a momentous occasion, and he didn't bother to show you any appreciation." The second friend's expression began to shift. Up until that moment, she hadn't thought of her husband's lack of a gift as something problematic. But now, as her friend's words settled in, she felt a strange unease creeping into her heart. The seed of doubt had been sown. What if her husband didn't value her? What if he had taken her for granted all this time? The first friend, unaware of the impact of her words, continued on with the conversation, throwing in more comments here and there. After a while, she said her goodbyes and left, leaving the second friend in a state of confusion and worry. Later that day, her husband came home to perform the day prayer. As he walked into the house, he noticed his wife's solemn face. Normally, she greeted him with warmth, but today she barely acknowledged him. "Is everything okay?" he asked, sensing that something was off. She hesitated at first but then blurted out, "You didn't give me anything to celebrate the birth of our child." The husband, confused by her sudden outburst, responded, "I didn't think it was necessary. We have everything we need, and I thought we were happy." His words, though meant to be logical, only fueled the fire that had been ignited in his wife's heart. "So, you don't think I deserve any kind of acknowledgement? After everything I went through?" "What are you talking about?" he said, growing frustrated. "Why are you making this into an issue? We've never cared about material gifts before. Why now?" The conversation escalated quickly, both of them growing more defensive and hurtful with each exchange. What started as a simple inquiry turned into a heated argument. They began raising their voices, hurling accusations, and digging up old grievances that neither of them had addressed in the past. The tension continued to build until, in a moment of anger, they said things they couldn't take back. The argument became so intense that it ended in a physical altercation, and in their rage, the husband pronounced divorce. In the aftermath of the fight, both were left devastated, wondering how such a simple conversation had spiraled so quickly into disaster. What had been the root cause of their conflict? It was a single, unnecessary dialogue between two friends. A seemingly innocent question had planted doubt in the wife's heart, leading to a cascade of misunderstandings and hurt feelings. That one careless comment had unleashed a series of events that destroyed what had once been a peaceful marriage. Similarly, another story unfolded between two friends, Zoid and Hind. They were chatting casually when Zoid asked, "Where do you work?" "I work in a small store," Hind replied. Zoid, without thinking, followed up with another question. "How much do you make?" Hind, hesitating for a moment, replied, 18,000 rupees a month. Zoid's face immediately showed surprise. "Just 18,000? How do you even live off such a small amount?" Hind sighed deeply. "What can I say, my friend? It's not easy, but we manage." The conversation ended, and Zoid, in the days that followed, Hind's frustration grew. He began to resent his job, feeling as though he was being underpaid and undervalued. His dissatisfaction reached a breaking point, and he decided to confront his boss and demand a raise. When he approached his employer, his request was met with a firm refusal. Hind, fueled by the frustration that had been building inside him, impulsively quit his job on the spot. He stormed out, thinking that he deserved better and that he could easily find something that paid more. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, he found himself struggling to find another job. His once steady, if modest, income was gone. His family was now struggling to make ends meet, and he was filled with regret. All of this had started with a single comment from a friend, a comment that had caused him to question his entire livelihood. In another instance, an elderly man was having a conversation with a neighbor. The two men sat together, reminiscing about the past and talking about their families. The neighbor, noticing that the elderly man's son didn't visit often, asked, "Your son doesn't come to see you much, does he?" The elderly man, always quick to defend his son, replied, "He's very busy with work. He has a family of his own now, and there's a lot on his plate." The neighbor, however, was not convinced. "Busy? Come on. You raised him, you gave him everything, and now he can't even make time to see you. That's just an excuse. If he really cared, he would find the time." The elderly man, who had never questioned his son's love for him before, began to feel a growing sense of doubt. Had his son truly become so distant? Had he forgotten all the sacrifices his father had made for him? The more the neighbor spoke, the more resentment began to take root in the elderly man's heart. From that day forward, whenever his son visited, the father's mind was clouded with suspicion. He could no longer enjoy their time together, as he was consumed by the belief that his son no longer cared for him. This once loving relationship was now strained, all because of a few careless words spoken by a neighbor who had no understanding of the bond between father and son. These stories illustrate the profound impact that words can have on our lives. Seemingly harmless questions, comments, or suggestions can plant seeds of doubt, dissatisfaction, and resentment in the hearts of others. These seeds, once planted, can grow into destructive forces that tear apart relationships, families, and even communities. As human beings, we often speak without thinking about the consequences of our words. We ask questions out of curiosity, or make remarks based on our own perceptions, without realizing that our words may be planting harmful ideas in the minds of those we are speaking to. Consider how many times we've heard or asked questions like, "Why don't you buy something nicer for yourself?" or "Why do you stay with that person?" These questions, though seemingly innocent, can cause someone to rethink their life choices in a negative way, leading to dissatisfaction and doubt where there was once contentment. It's important to remember that our words have power. They can either build someone up or tear them down. They can sow seeds of love, trust, and understanding, or they can plant the seeds of hatred, doubt, and division. In many cases, the conflicts we see around us, whether between friends, family members, or even entire communities, can be traced back to careless words spoken in passing. In today's world, where misunderstandings and conflicts seem to be more common than ever, it's crucial that we think carefully before we speak. We must be mindful of the impact our words can have on others and strive to speak in ways that promote peace, understanding, and love. We should aim to enter other people's lives with humility and grace, knowing that we don't always understand their struggles or the dynamics of their relationships. When we visit someone's home, we should metaphorically enter blind and leave deaf, meaning we should not pry into their private matters or spread gossip that could cause harm.